Oh, my goodness. Well, it's such a joy. You know, sometimes life can be a struggle, a challenge. And sometimes people think they're on the wrong path because their life involves struggles and challenges. But in fact, your struggles and your challenges may be the avenue to new growth, to bringing forth the hero inside of you, that hero that is in your heart, that hero that wants to burst forth and be something new and unique, the presence of God living itself as you. Repeat after me. I am the presence of God, living as me, doing amazing things. I am awesome. Okay, now look at someone next to you. Yeah, that's all right. Introverts, take a deep breath. Look at someone close to you. Repeat after me. You are amazing. I am so fortunate to be close to you. We are arranged to be here together. We're going to do amazing things together. Let's do this together. Give each other a high five. All right. So the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, who is a spiritual mentor through his literature, spiritual mentor to me, writes about the hero's journey. He wrote books like The Hero with 1,000 Faces, or a book with Bill Moyers, The Power of Myth. One year I went to the mountains of Colorado by myself. I stayed on a mountain all by myself, and I took with me The Power of Myth, and I just immersed into it. And he talks about these different concepts, these spiritual concepts, these spiritual truths that you can see that come up in every culture, regardless of the tradition, regardless of the faith background, regardless of the world area. Truth is truth, and it continues to surface and come forth. And so Joseph Campbell began to notice these commonalities, these archetypes, they are called, that connect all of these different cultures as these same spiritual truths come forth. You may not know this, but Joseph Campbell's wife, Jean, is a part of this church, part of this Loving Ohana. She attended here for years, is now in a care facility across the beautiful mountains. I got to drive over there recently. My ears popped, came back on the other side of the mountains, and had this wonderful connection with her, this wonderful love. And so Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey as when we hear the call to adventure, the call to do something a little outside the box. You know, when I was in Colorado one time, I wanted to climb a 14er, one of those mountains that's more than 14,000 feet high. I had just gotten to Colorado, so I hadn't acclimated to the atmosphere yet, but I was determined. I was on this holy quest to climb Mount Yale. And so I climbed Mount Yale, and it's a pretty difficult hike, actually. And timberline is at about 10,500 feet or 11,000 feet. So above that, you're really sucking for air, you know? You're like, and you're above the tree line. And then about the last 600 or 800 feet, you're climbing over boulders. So those who are not acclimated to the atmosphere sometimes experience some anoxia, that is, lack of oxygen. And having lack of oxygen is a little bit like being drunk. You start to stumble, and my legs were kind of rubbery, and I'm stumbling over the rocks. And it's like, man, I got to keep going. I know I can make it. I know I can make it. But it looked too difficult to climb over the boulders. So I decided to go around the edge of the boulders, and I would step on a rock, and it would fall about 800 feet below me. And I would think, nope, that's not the right rock to step on. I'd try another one. Okay, and I told a ranger afterwards, and he shook his head. And this was in a restaurant. There's other people around. He said, we lose a number of people like that every year. You're very fortunate to be here talking to me right now. Now, that's a guy with good self-esteem. You're very fortunate to talk to me right now. Anyway. So, you are called to an adventure. You are called to something amazing, something outside the box. But it's the call of spirit inside of you. When I was in Wichita, at Unity of Wichita, I'd been there almost 9 years. I loved that congregation, loved those people. But I got to the point where I realized I was no longer called there. It wasn't there anymore. The call was gone. I was still called to minister. I was still called to pastor. I thought, now what do I do? And in Wichita, on the highways, they have these big electronic signs that tell you how many minutes away you are from, like, the central business district, like 10 to 12 minutes to the central business district, or time to airport, 15 minutes or whatever. So I was riding down the highway. This is on I-135 in Wichita. It goes north to south. Wichita is on the grid. It goes north to south. It's not like here. Okay. So I'm going down I-35, and I'm praying. It's like, God, I know I'm called, but I really don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. There's some change going on in me, and I don't know what you're doing in me. And I know you're having a great time with whatever surprise this is, but right now it's a little rough for me. And I'd really like a sign. I'd like some sort of understanding, some sort of vision of what it is I'm to do, I mean, typically I don't ask for a sign, but can I have some sort of sign? And as I'm praying this, I look up at the electronic sign that's over the highway. And one of the letters on this light marquee, one of the letters is out. And so it says this, Tim to airport. And I'm like, really? Where to? And somehow I began to know I was on a new adventure. I was receiving the call to adventure. And anytime we go on this adventure, we have this spiritual aid. We have this voice of spirit inside of us saying, it's okay. I've got your back. I'm going to be there. I'm going to walk with you. I'm with you always, even unto the end of the world, it says in Matthew 28. Or, as it says in Joshua, be not afraid. I am with you. We know that this presence is always with us, that the universe is conspiring on our behalf. So, we have this supernatural aid to lead us, to guide us. And then we cross into the threshold guardian. What is the threshold guardian? Now, in The Lord of the Rings, that might be a troll. It might be somebody that's guarding the cave. Or if it's in Star Wars, it's Darth Vader. Someone who is trying to keep us from advancing. And that is a very good archetype for our journey. Because when we step out in faith to do something new, we often encounter some fear. Like, me? Who are you talking to? Me? And Moses did that. In the Hebrew Scriptures, he said, no. Call my brother Aaron. He's a much better speaker than I. I stammer. No, call somebody else. And that was Moses. All right? Everybody struggles a bit with this call, like, oh my goodness, move to Hawaii, sell our stuff, or whatever it is for you. Go to school, go through the difficulties of school, go through all the challenges financially, but knowing that that vision is in front of you and nothing can defeat you because you are stepping forward in faith and the power of the universe, the power of the divine, living itself as you, wants to succeed. That's why that impulse is there. As Eric Butterworth in Discover the Power Within You, which I highly recommend, Discover the Power Within You, says the desire itself is the thing itself in incipiency. That is, it's like the acorn that holds all that the oak tree is to become. It's already present. Or it's like, that little tiny banyan tree seed. And you see how big the banyan trees grow? Comes from a little tiny seed. But everything that's needed for that banyan tree is in that seed. And in the same way, that vision carries with it all the power, all that you need, because it comes as the divine revelation in you. So, we cross that threshold of fear, the challenges, and we discover helpers. There are people along the way. I know it's hard to believe because you believe that angels fan me all day, and feed me all kinds of, once in a while they do. I was on a board meeting call one day. It's virtual. They can see me, and Unity Worldwide Ministries Board could see me. We were in a very deep, heavy financial report, and the staff suddenly came in with fans and started fanning me and gave me a coconut drink with, a little umbrella sticking out. And all the board started laughing, except for the chief financial officer who could not see the monitor, and he thought they were all laughing at him. But I said, yeah, this is how they treat me in Hawaii, So helpers show up, and recently I had this, real difficult day. I just had a rough time. And things were just going south. And the next day I got up and I made a decision. This needs to go differently today. I can decide how this day is going to be because all that God is supporting me, is living forth as me. I don't need to get under the circumstances. I can be above the circumstances. I can work with the circumstances, knowing that everybody that I need to help me that day will show up. And so I went to downtown, to the government offices. I'm still new, finding my way around Hawaii, and I forget to take quarters everywhere I go. And so I get to this place. The security guard is really, really nice to me. I'm like, yeah, thank you, God. I can feel it. All of this is working on my behalf. And then I get down to the parking spot. Oh, don't have quarters. Oh, yeah, but remember, there's going to be a helper. There's going to be someone who's going to help me. And I see a young woman, looks a lot like Alethea, who is walking through the parking lot. Well, it wasn't Alethea, but I thought, looks like Alethea, so I'm just going to trust this is the right and perfect person to talk to. And I said, hi, do you have change for a 20? Because this change machine only takes 1s or 5s. And, I thought, please, God, don't let her think I'm weird or a freak, And she opened up her purse. She's looking, and she pulls out 4 1s, and she hands them to me and says, here, this should help. And I said, I think all I need is a 1. And she said, no, please take all of it. I'm like, I think I just need 1. She said, go check. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here. Okay? So I run off, and I look at the meter, and it says like 15 minutes for each quarter. So I'm thinking, an hour should be plenty of time. So I run back, and I said, $1 should be great. Thank you so much. She said, you sure? I'd really be happy to give you all. No, $1's fine. Thank you. I said, you're so nice. You're so open. I mean, this really means a lot to me. How is it that you're so open and so friendly? And she said, I would just want someone else to do the same for me. I said, I would. And, and then I got to the government office. And, I'm affirming the whole way. There's going to be helpers. There's going to be people helping. The government worker was so friendly and so helpful and cheerful. And, oh, welcome to our island, Reverend, and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, wow, where am I? I'm in heaven. It's a matter of our consciousness. It's a matter of our consciousness, right? And that's the hero's journey. We have these helpers along the way, but sometimes we have these struggles, these trials, these temptations. So we have mentors. Mentors are people who can help instruct us along the way, who've traveled this themselves, who've gone through some of this, or who've gone through a lot of it several times. We face temptations, challenges, and sometimes we go into this abyss, this dark night of the soul. Anyone ever heard that phrase? Dark night of the soul, St. John of the Cross. This place of emptying, like, woo, didn't count on this happening. What are we doing? And my wife and I are looking at each other and like, where are we going to put all the stuff that's coming on our pod? Sometimes you go into this place where you wonder, wow. And sometimes it's a real deep place. But that's a place of transformation. And you can see this reoccurring over and over in stories. Orpheus in Greek mythology had to go down into Hades to get Euripides, his wife, to rescue her from Hades. Any of you here seen What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams? It's a great movie where he goes down into the depths to rescue his wife. So sometimes we have to go into those depths. And this is also the story of Jesus, who accepted this call to adventure, who faced major challenges and temptation, like 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, and had lots of temptation and trials, went into death and into the tomb. And 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 19, which you're all familiar with, I'm sure, states that he went, descended, and spoke to the spirits that were in prison. And the Catholic and Orthodox Church interprets that as speaking to those spirits in hell to redeem them, to bring forth the good news. So when we go through that deep time or struggles, know that that could be a sign that you're on the right path. Sometimes people come to me and say, I don't know what's going on, Reverend Tim, because I'm facing some hard times in life. Things don't seem to be going right. I must be doing something wrong. I affirm, I deny, I do all the unity principles, and I still face these hard times. They might have lost their job, their possessions. Their spouse may have run off with somebody. They're trying to sort it out. What did I do wrong, Reverend Tim? And I make sure I'm at least an arm's distance when I say this to them. I mean, I'm a gentle, empathic person, and I listen and I love them, but I say this also to them. But I'm serious. I make sure I'm at least an arm's distance away. And if they're in martial arts, a leg's distance away. I say, thanks be to God. Because that's evidence that you're on the transformation process. You're ready for transformation. Because that shows that you're stepping into new ground. Things are getting shook up. The old ground is being broken up so that we can plant something new. Isn't that exciting? Now, when they're going through that, they're like, yeah, I kind of like the old way before. And that's how we feel. We sometimes want to go back to the way it was. But you can't return. Thanks be to God, because we're in this transformation process. And then that moves towards atonement, or as we say in unity, at one-ment, knowing our oneness with God and our oneness with each other. Having gone through this process, we bring with us divine gifts to help others. If you've gone through a difficult time, those difficult times have helped to bring forth fruit in you, if you will allow it, if you will work with it, to bring gifts to touch other people's lives. You carry in you the seeds of greatness to touch other people in a way that no one else can. You carry within you the very presence of God wanting to do something unique and beautiful as you, and only you can do it. You are what we've been praying for. You are what you've been praying for. You are the answer to your own prayers. So it's time to allow that to come forth. Don't hold back. Why hold back? Why play small? We're here to play big, to be what we really are. So we return with these amazing gifts. Now I want to share with you a quote from Joseph Campbell. If you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, you know it's not your path. Your own path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path. Your path is the one that you are creating. If everything is laid out for you, that means it's someone else's path. But your path is something new, something innovative, something that has never been done quite that way before. You're bringing these unique experiences and gifts, living forth as you, the presence of God living forth as you, and that is what you are here to do. That's your purpose. Some people come to me and say, Reverend Tim, I don't know my purpose. It's being you. It's being the true you, the real you, bringing forth that divine presence. But we need to overcome the fear and step into it. Now, talking about stepping into it. Anybody recognize this guy here? Some people said, who's that face on your Facebook page? I said, that's me. This is me when I was traveling through India. So this is what I looked like when I was traveling through India. And like I had a monk, Swamiji, give me this orange cloth, and with the promise, Mr. Tim, you must carry this, you must keep it the rest of your life. So that's a promise I made to Swamiji, and Swamiji took me on adventures. I'll share with you a little bit of that. So this is me. I had traveled to Vrindavan following a holy vision that I received while in deep meditation. I heard a voice that said, you will now see yourself as you once were. And somehow I knew it to be the truth. And boop, up popped this short, dark Indian man standing in front of these temples. I have studied about India since I was 4 years old, and I had never seen these temples before. And don't know what you think of reincarnation, but somehow I knew the Indian guy I was looking at is me. And so I started looking up online about this place called Vrindavan because I was reading a book on it, and I began seeing these pictures, and I saw these temples. And I began to sob, recognizing them as the same vision I saw in that special time of meditation. And Anandamayi Ma is one of my spiritual influences. I have a number of them, and I stayed at a couple of her ashrams there. One of them was on this remote island, and I had to walk a little ways on the island so I could look across and take a picture of somewhat civilization. But on this island, this is about halfway up. You have to go up this mountain. And there's a school there. They have about 300 children. And they clothe them, they feed them, they school them for free. No cost to them. Poorest of the poor children. For $150 a year, one child can be clothed, schooled, fed for $150 for the whole year. And I was carrying these big things full books and things. They ran down the stairs, boop, popped up on top of their head, and ran up the stairs, up the mountain. It was amazing. And this was the ashram I was staying at. And Swamiji, we were at the Holy Narmada River. There's 7 primary holy rivers in India. The Narmada is known for washing away past guilt, trauma, pain. And Swamiji, there was a thunderstorm, and Swamiji said, "Mr. Tim, we must go down to the Holy Narmada River and swim." I said, "Swamiji, there's a thunderstorm." "Mr. Tim, come on, let's go swim in the Holy Narmada River." "Swamiji, it's a thunderstorm." "Mr. Tim, we must go down to the..." Okay. So I'm like, "How do I need to dress?" He said, "Take off your clothes." Now? That's when I received this. So this was for clothing as well as drying off afterwards. Maybe too much information. Anyway, so we went down to the river. There's lightning flashing all around. We bathed in it. He's laughing like a little child, splashing the water, saying, "Mr. Tim, we're swimming in the Holy Narmada River. Isn't this great?" And I'm praying, "God, don't let me get struck by lightning." Later, I went back down to that river and prayed for release of past traumas, past abuse, past pain that I had experienced, or that pain that I had inflicted on others. That night, I went into a 2.5-week-long process where I was present at all of the traumatic events of my life. Whenever I had been hurt, whenever I had been traumatized or abused, I was present. I saw myself as a child. I saw the adult screaming at me or abusing me, and I was present, and I could interact. And I said to myself as a child, "You know what? You think there's something wrong with you because people tell you there is. You think there's something broken or botched with you. But the truth is you're very, very good. And I love you. And you're going to grow up to touch people's lives. You're going to grow up to do some amazing things. You believe in yourself because I do." And then I spoke to the adult. And I said, "I know you're doing the very best you can. And I love you. And I forgive you. And I know you're real frustrated with this little guy. But you don't understand. This little guy is really a good guy. He's going to grow up to touch a lot of people's lives. And I want you to know I love you and I forgive you." And I went through every event where I had experienced pain or where I had inflicted pain on others. And that was cleansed. It was a powerful process. I also got very, very sick during that time. A lump formed inside my throat, almost closing off my throat. It was about 100 degrees there and 95 to 100% humidity. And there were times where I could not get warm enough. I had chills. So they were very, very concerned about me at the ashram. And they took me back to the ashram and indoor where Baba is. Baba is the Indian word for like daddy, Baba. And he's the head of these ashrams. And you see this line going down the front of him? That's his beard. It's braided. Goes almost to his knees. And they have a place called a Goshala where they take care of cows. And they would feed me this milk that had come straight from there to here. And it warmed it up, sweetened it for me as I was in the healing process. But they told Baba that I had been sick. Baba has caramel-colored skin, but crystal blue eyes. And so he came down with this very serious look. Normally he's very jovial and smiling. But he had this very serious look. And so he comes down to look at me. And he starts at the top of my head, and then he slowly looks down and goes all the way down, and then all the way back up. No change in his expression. And his crystal clear blue eyes are staring right into mine. And then he says, "You will be all right." And he walks off. I thought, what was that? I started to get better from that moment on. He had given me like a blessing with his eyes. That's what he was doing. And so I recuperated there. So those helpers, those mentors show up. When you take this adventure, all that you need is provided for you on this. But what is necessary is for you to step out there. Go ahead and step out. Have any of you seen that Indiana Jones movie where he's seeking after the Holy Grail? And there's this huge chasm. And the instructions he's been given is to step out in faith. But there's this huge ravine, this huge chasm. He's like, I'm told to step out in faith. But finally, he decides. So he takes this big step and he steps out. And it's not until he does so that he finds that there's this invisible bridge that goes across the chasm. Everything you need is provided for you on your journey. Be not afraid. That is said over and over and over in Scripture. That's why I get riled up when churches try to make people afraid, because I actually see that as anti-Christ. That is anti-Christ, because the Christ in you does not have any fear. There is no fear in God. There is no fear in stepping out in faith and doing what you are called to do. You have the power in you to do it. And we are here as a sacred church to support you in it. This church is on this journey too. There's been trials and temptations. There's been some ups and downs. When my friend Sky St. John made his transition and I found out about it the next day, from that day till now, I was praying for this congregation and knowing for you the highest and best. So, you have gone through this dark night of the soul also. But what we receive as we go through some of the challenges, conflicts, turmoils, that is a sure sign that this church is in the transformation process, coming back around so that we bring gifts to touch other people's lives. This church is going to see the best days just ahead, and so are you. God bless you. Thank you. Thanks.